All right. So, testing this out. Um, all right. This is just testing to see how Streamyard will work if running it off of my phone as opposed to running it off the laptop, since my wife has our laptop with her at work today, since she doesn't have access to the company's store computer today, since it is being moved to another location, and she still has administrative work to tend to on that. So I'm not sure exactly how well this is going to do, but we'll see. Uh, yeah. Did I blank out there? Okay, this is a little weird. I'm not accustomed to this. Shit. Can't really ask anybody either if it's still going. This really paints you into a corner, doesn't it? Unless I get somebody in here who actually comments. Banners, brand, whoa, what the hell? Okay. Comments, oh, comments, guests, um, screen info. Okay, okay. Uh, so I should quit putzing around with settings or anything, just until I can figure out what's going on here. Um, and, general settings. All right, so that's disabled while it's live. Good to know. I could have changed this before going live. Okay, also good to know. Wish I had thought to look for that ahead of time. Okay, so um, I suppose at this point I may as well go ahead and get into the material. It'll show up later and be available for folks to listen to at that time. Again, it feels strange because I feel like I should be sharing the link out. Um, but I don't know if that would work. I don't know if this is current. Damn it. Belgian Dan. Oh goodness, it is good to have you here, brother. And I hate to recruit you like this or draft you into doing so, but I'm hoping that you might be able to give me a little assistance in terms of feedback and testing so that I can figure out what I'm doing here. I'm doing okay, Dan, but I am exposing my inability to be very tech savvy in any way, shape, or form. Um, because this is my first time trying to run a StreamYard based live on YouTube off of mobile. Um, my wife's got the laptop at her job today, so I'm very much unaccustomed to trying to do this via my cell phone. Um, Not 100% certain how it's coming across. So I guess my first question is, does it sound okay? Are you picking up my audio all right? So you're watching on your show. I'm streaming, or you're watching on your phone. I'm streaming via the phone. As yeah. All right, excellent. So long as it sounds good, um, you know me. When I do these solo shows, I generally tend to have um, a few notes to go over and have something of a skeletal outline to go off of, and so I'm going to begin doing that here in a moment. The only other favor that I would ask, Dan, is if you can think of anybody else who might be interested in hearing a little bookish chat, because that's kind of where I want to focus most of my little diatribe here today is in the realm of books and certain developments that have been going on in the publishing realm. Not really even new developments. Some of these things have been going on for years and years, and um, because I've been paying a little bit more attention over the last couple of years, and especially recently, trying to trying to stay somewhat grounded and, as it were, middle of the road, that is becoming way more difficult given how everything tends to lean. Um, I find myself not able or wanting to remain middle of the road anymore, because some of this stuff has just become egregious. But if you know of anybody else who wants to uh, take a listen, just share the show, and I'll share a link to it after it's been completed, and I can actually copy the link and post it out to various discords and what have you that I'm in. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Storyteller's Corner. I'm your host, Joshua T. Calkins Trubergy, also known as Byron Sidious. All hail coffee. Caffeine is the nectar of the gods. It's also the nectar of staying the hell awake, particularly when the kids wake you up at like 4 in the morning. So, we've had some interesting developments over on Substack. Um, all right. Yes. Away. True to coffee. Caesar's Legion probably could have done some damage to the NCR if they'd actually had some fucking caffeine in their systems instead of eating their goddamn guava shit from the Mojave. And for anybody who's unfamiliar, lost me for a second there. What the hell? Okay, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to move around much or be truly mobile with the mobile show. It says I'm still alive, so I am hopeful, but we shall see. Oop, easy does it. Easy does it. Come on. Damn it. This is why we can't have nice things. Oh, oh, okay. Come on. Budge up there, buddy. Budge up. There we go. So mostly centered. There we go. Dano, can you still hear me? Or did I lose the feed? Really am hoping I didn't lose the feed. But as I was saying before, there's been a couple of interesting notes and posts that I've become aware of over on Substack. There's a handful of folks who routinely talk about their experiences working with Amazon, especially through its KDP or Kindle Direct Publishing program. And there is a frequent user of the KDP program, and he often promotes KDP. He often talks highly of the revenue split that they use. Um, they also tend to be very much taking their time on um, on Substack to sing its praises and recommend other small press or indie authors consider coming over to KDP as their primary source of publication and distribution. And he was taken rather aback the other day when he discovered that his KDP account, his author account, had been deleted, had been eliminated without notice, without any heads up, without any email explanation. He reached out to Amazon, and they did was send him kind of a form letter saying, we don't know exactly what happened at this time. We'll look into it until such time as we discover what has happened. Your Kindle Direct Publishing author profile and account is inoperable and inaccessible to you. And at first, he was obviously bummed out, but said, okay, I'll wait to hear back from you folks. Apparently, that was about a month ago. And he hasn't heard any other follow up, despite his reaching out with one email about 2 weeks back, when it had been 2 weeks since the original application. He was like, what's going on? I'd really like to. Oh, give me 1 second, folks. Sorry about that. 2 weeks after the notification email that his account had been wiped out, his response asking 2 weeks later, what's going on? Have you heard anything? Any news? 2 weeks later, he still hasn't heard any response to his request for a follow up. Amazon is pretty much ghosting him and keeping him from being able to utilize the KDP program. And there were several folks on Substack who recommended that he should look into it himself, that maybe there's a problem of his name being similar to another author, which does frequently happen, but does not tend to lead to the deletion or elimination of one author or the other. And he was questioning, well, was there maybe something in my books or in my stories that violated that goes against the Amazon terms of service? Messages. And where was I? Oh, yeah. No, I forgot my place again. This is why I thought maybe doing this mobile was not going to be the greatest thing. Plus, I'm already scatterbrained. End of the story. The end point being, he wasn't sure what exactly had caused the removal of his material from KDP and program, generally speaking. A lot of authors on Substack responded to him saying, suggesting all these possibilities. He kept coming back, telling them, no, I've looked into that. No, I've looked into that. I've read through my material. I've had some of my beta readers look through, and I've asked for feedback from them. I've noted all of their feedback, and nothing seems to make sense. None of the material violates the terms and conditions on Amazon's website. None of the material violates the Kindle Direct Publishing specific guidelines for material to be published through the KDP program. Nothing is in violation. And he has spent hours and hours and hours every day for the last 2 weeks since receiving no response from Amazon, wondering if there's nothing overtly in violation of KDP's guidelines, then why was the material removed? Now, Amazon has a policy wherein if a buyer or if a reader of a piece of material in the KDP library finds something objectionable in a product, they can send a report to Amazon. Amazon doesn't take immediate action to remove the book or to unlist it or to flag it or to lock it up or lock it down rather, or halt or pause purchase capability. What they do, however, is their standard operating procedure for years was to send a notification to the KDP author, hey, we received a complaint about this title. Would you like to know the feedback from the client or the customer? They don't offer the author any access to the client, to that particular customer's name or their ID or their user profile. All they can gain access to is any typed out specific feedback that the customer lodging a complaint would make. And oftentimes the complaint would be something along the lines of, this seems very similar to another piece of work. There were questions about plagiarism and copy pasting, most of which were determined to be not instances of plagiarism, but simply similar passages or a similar writing style and or technique. There have been a few cases, however, unfortunately, where people literally were plagiarizing the works of others and publishing them through the KDP program. And Amazon, to their credit, I hate saying that, has tried to crack down on that. However, in this particular Substack user's instance, he has not found any cause and cannot access any kind of complaints or reports that have been filed with Amazon against his material. Amazon and the KDP program specifically have basically just ghosted this author, and they are withholding his money. They are withholding his earnings until such time as this investigation is completed. So you're not giving him access to any information, not going to let him understand why he's been removed from the KDP program, and you're going to hold his money from earnings or sales through the KDP revenue share program, but you're not going to tell him anything. This seems rather suspect. And it also made me think that since roughly 2018, KDP authors by the dozens have been kicked off from listings on the site between in that time frame, from 2018 to 2023. Now, mind you, the KDP program has only really been around since I think it was 2015 or 2016. It has not been around for a long time. But there are literally dozens upon dozens, a little over 100 authors, indie authors, who have had their titles unlisted from Amazon's KDP program without notice and without explanation. And I'm not talking about people who were found guilty of having plagiarized material or violated copyright. Those are explained, but there are over 100 cases of KDP authors who've been removed from the program, who've had their earnings withheld and their accounts stripped or deleted and kicked off of the Amazon site altogether without explanation. And there is a common tie among approximately 70 to 80%, according to Nielsen Bookscan, of these authors. All of them in that 70 to 80% range. So I can't say all of them. 70 to 80% of the folks who've been kicked out of the KDP program have been found to be considered politically moderate or conservative. This is not a huge red flag in and of itself. But if we look across the rest of the publishing industry over the last 10 to 20 years, we see a pattern developing. The American Library Association, earlier this year in April, there has been a universal removal of all books written by Republican lawmakers from the central database hub of the ALA, and a dozen conservative commentators called for by the governing board from all high school libraries and all correctional facilities. The ALA, the American Library Association, their governing board has members calling for the removal of books written by Republican lawmakers and a little over a dozen conservative commentators. This policy position was called for back in April. It has not yet been voted for or ratified because there are members on the board, governing board, saying we can't do that. That is book burning. That is not what we are supposed to stand for or represent. But there are several members on the ALA's governing board who want any and all conservatives who are in Congress, in the Senate, or on certain conservative news or media outlets to have their books unlisted and removed from the American Library Association locations, which would include every public library and every correctional facility library across the country. How has this received almost no attention? Well, it's very simple. The American Library Association governing moves, maneuvers, and policies are not broadly covered or inspected. Nobody much cares because what they do is not on television. It's not in cinemas. It's on the shelves of libraries and booksellers. Books continue to be the foundation of our cultural products. If it's on television or on cinema screens, it probably started between the covers of a book. But very few people in the United States read anymore. Nobody cares if it's based on a book. The only exceptions I can immediately think of in the current popular culture discourse are the books from the Star Wars extended universe or expanded universe lore, what they call legends now. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter books, Suzanne Collins's Hunger Games books. Thank you, Brains. Thanks for finally popping back on. Or the Handmaid's Tale, which is it's really it disturbs me that so many of the books that are adapted into popular culture, into cinematic or televised products, all seem to have a common socio-political leaning. And while you can't point at Harry Potter for having an overt socio-political leaning, the folks who hate the author, they all have the same socio-political leaning, it would seem. Anyway, this one came out. This was a request made in February of this year, 2024. Bear in mind, Barnes & Noble's bookseller's majority shareholder, Outerbridge Asset Management, which owns 10% roughly of all shares in Barnes& and Noble Educational, has called for the removal of all titles from Glenn Beck, Bill O'Reilly, Dan Bongino, Jesse Waters, Tom Clancy, which I found an odd inclusion, Jordan Peterson, and Can't Timph from across all U.S. markets. The request was made in the second week of February by Outer Bridge Asset Management, which is owned on public listings by a gentleman, Matthew Walters. Matthew Walters does not have a personal direct connection to any of the sort of Lords of the Sith monetary agencies or financial companies that we tend to think of as the big bad evils, like BlackRock, State Street, or Vanguard. But it does leave one wondering, and I am going to do a little more digging into finding out what exactly are the connections there. Why does Everbridge Asset Management care so much about these conservatives not having their books available for sale? This one is much, much, much more recent, and again, dives into the political. Hi, buddy. How you doing? The American United Booksellers Association has received over 10,000 requests since Tuesday to remove J.D. Vance's Hillbilly Elegy from both online and brick and mortar bookstores across the country. What do you want, buddy? Yeah, hold on. Orange? All right. Hold on. Well, hold on, Goober. I'm going to get it open for you there, bud. It is kind of warm in here today, isn't it? There you go. Wow. Wow. Here you go, buddy. Go ahead. Sorry about that. Well, yeah, dad mode activated. That's like a consistent. That's why I'm out here in the garage, so that we don't smoke up the house. And trust me, Dan, people who watch me at all, they know when dad mode activates, that's everything else kind of gets thrown to the side. Where was I? Yes, since J.D. Vance was announced as the vice presidential candidate selection for Donald Trump, there have been over 10,000 registered requests with the American United Booksellers Association to remove his book, Hillbilly Elegy, from available distribution to booksellers. Yeah, I smell a rat. I actually smell the dog. She doesn't usually come out here to the garage. Anyway, moving along. Another point of note, Russell, Hill and Chambers, one of the largest and longest operating literary agencies in the United States, had a policy from 2017 until just this last Monday. Coincidence? I think not. That stated that they would reject any and all manuscripts from authors found to have supported or donated to Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. They are currently facing roughly 24 lawsuits, however, for discrimination. I find it curious that they finally decided to change this policy Monday. Now, what may have happened over the weekend just past that made the folks who run this literary agency look at one another and say, we can't keep doing this. We're going to get called out hard. Just asking questions. And my last little literary realm note for this show. A colleague of mine in the writing realm who wishes to remain anonymous because he still works in the arena of script writing, screenwriting, and working in television as a writing room contributor, has informed me. This was an exchange we had the other day, and it's just rumor. There's I can't get I can't get any kind of confirmation of this, but this is something that he has heard bandied about by other colleagues of his who also work in writing rooms. There has been a great deal of laughter and cajoling and backslapping and congratulating each other in the background in these writers' rooms because people have been saying, oh, there's all these people on YouTube who they do live streams, snarling about how much they hate Disney Star Wars and they hate the Acolyte and they spend hours and hours making fun of it and laughing about it and poking fun and disrespecting Disney and Disney Star Wars. Isn't it hilarious? And I asked this gentleman, well, what do they think is so hilarious about it? And he informed me, well, from what I have heard, Google, as you know, takes roughly 35%, 30 to 35% of all super chat donations for themselves. I'm like, yeah, that's well known. That's publicly known. That's nobody is unaware of that who gets involved with YouTube and or streaming. The scuttlebutt is, however, that Google and YouTube utilizing AI algorithm scraping programs to monitor live streams is keeping track of all of the super chats on these streams and on these shows on YouTube that are focused on Disney and specifically on Disney Star Wars. Google is taking roughly half of the super chat money that they receive from these shows and they are giving it back directly to Disney. In other words, Disney is profiting, and Star Wars specifically, is profiting off of their haters. And this put me in mind of something that has become something of a trope, something of a meme online, especially on YouTube, with a fellow by the name of Eric July, the gentleman who is the founder and operator of Rippaverse Comics. He has said, monetize your haters. Apparently, Disney is. And they're getting help doing it from Google. Now, this is not confirmed. I have no way to confirm this myself. This is just scuttlebutt I received from a gentleman who is a colleague of mine, who is himself an independent fantasy author, who secured himself work as a screenwriter in writing rooms, as a contributor in writing rooms in California. He and I have a shared background together. We have worked together on two different short story anthology collections. I can say nothing more than that because I don't want to give him away. But he's overheard people talking about this and laughing, saying, there's all these streamers like Nerdrotic and the Critical Drinker and As versus As versus Babyface and Hypnotic and all these other pop culture YouTubers who stream on YouTube, who receive super chat donations on shows shitting all over Disney and Star Wars under the Disney banner, who, unbeknownst to them, the money that's coming in, a portion of it is going right back into Disney's pockets to make up for the fact that nobody likes their shit. So if a show produced by Disney or a movie produced by Disney seems to really be going out of their way to let the audience know, the traditional Star Wars audience know, hey, we hate you. We hate everything about you, everything you stand for. If you do a live stream shitting all over their products on that Star Wars show or movie, and you monetize it on YouTube through a Google product, Disney's still going to make money off of you. My recommendation in this instance, if this is true, and hell, even if it's only feasible, my recommendation is take your ass to Rumble. Now, I know that the overlords at YouTube, Google don't like people mentioning their alternatives, their competitors. And being that I'm on a free Streamyard account and I can't use Streamyard to stream over to Rumble myself as yet, because I don't have the disposable money right now to just pay for an upgraded account on Streamyard. That's not viable for me right now, but I do have OBS on my computer, but I don't have my laptop this morning. So, I did do a number of Rumble streams. Let's get ready to rumble! So chances are that this video will not be shared out or promoted because we're all aware of how YouTube operates these days. We all know the shady tactics and the underhanded trickery and fuckery of YouTube and Google. So why do they continue to let us to be on these platforms, to use them, if we stay within certain guidelines? Well, because they don't have much other choice. If they don't allow us to stay here and operate, we may well be forced to go over to their competition. And they would rather keep a few folks here who are just on the margin of acceptability and approachability of what they do and say on this platform than get rid of them altogether and lose that contributor to their zeitgeist. They would rather take the risk of, well, this person may eventually have to get shit canned, but for now, we can just reduce their reach, not promote them, not allow them access to certain tools and operational algorithms. We can just keep them buried deep in the dark and the dirt. And that'll work fine for now. But there are plenty of us who have been looking to pull the ripcord and get completely off of YouTube altogether. Frankly, I have been trying to get my stream key availability over on BitChute for a couple weeks now. I reached out to them and said, hey, look, I tried going live because for about 4 years now, I've been a BitChute first content producer online. I hate that term. I hate content creator. I hate content producer. I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller. But most of my stories have come out first via BitChute. Only recently have I come back to YouTube little by little. And it was primarily because BitChute was undergoing a lot of technical changes on their back end. They're going through a lot of development on their site and on their service. So while they're going through hiccups and growing pains as they evolve into the newer version of that service, okay, I'll rely on YouTube as a backup. But that's what this is now. It's my backup, except when I'm doing a live stream. I would go to Rumble to stream more frequently, except, again, I need to have access to my OBS, and my laptop is doesn't run that great. It's not optimized for streaming anywhere. So for the time being, I'm kind of stuck here. But as soon as I can justify the expense of getting an upgraded Streamyard account, I am going to upgrade. As soon as like I said, as soon as I can justify the expense by cutting out spending somewhere else in my weekly or monthly budget, I'm going to upgrade it so that I can stop streaming to YouTube, so that I can use StreamYard to stream to Rumble. And then I will only be on YouTube when I am doing a show with Brother Cortex, when we're doing a deep dive into things like the SCP Foundation universe, or other analog horror series like The Back Rooms, or critically reviewing Fallout, which I had a blast doing that with him. It was a good time. Frustrating, the watching of the material, but overall, I had a great time getting on here with him and tearing that show apart, dissecting it like a battlefield surgeon, trying to figure out which bullet killed this guy. Well, what bullet killed that show? Everything about it killed that show. It could have been so much better. Um, but like I said, in terms of my independent or individual material for standalone videos, I'm pretty much ready to go back to BitChute full time. They've got their standalone video uploading and processing back together. They've got that fixed, so I can go back to uploading primarily standalone videos to BitChute. But the streaming thing really needs to get fixed over there. They've got to get it fixed, or else that's just going to continue to be a nightmare. And I say fixed in that I can't access it. There's only a handful of users on BitChute who currently have access to live streaming. I'm not one of them. Even though on BitChute, I may only have 52 subscribers, but I have over 100,000 views on my videos across my time there. And I've been a long-running proponent and supporter of BitChute. And I hope that they'll come around and get me access soon to be able to live stream there. I'll be right back. Got coffee here. I know the audio is lashed to my Bluetooth headset, so I'm wondering if you folks can still hear me while I putz around my kitchen here. What up, dog? What's up? Jeez, guy. Hey, Sky. Come here. Yeah. Hey, coffee. Yes, our new dog. I say new, but we've had her since, gosh, late January now. Um, Cheers. Yes. Our son named her. And yes, she is named after Sky from Paw Patrol. Even though the cartoon dog is a Labradoodle, and our Sky is a Golden Retriever. Like Dennis, does she look like Sky? Yeah. Well, she was a puppy. She was brand new. She was only like 4 months old when we got her, so she was still tiny. She's still not a very big dog now, but yeah, it's a dog he knows. So it's like Sky. Okay, we'll go with that. And he enjoys the dog, but he gets a little nervous when him and his brother are running around crashing like a couple of maniacs around the house. But I am going to have to hop off of here soon, as Malia will probably be up from her nap pretty shortly, I imagine, and I'll have to get lunch ready for her, myself, and for Colin. We can't subsist on snacks all day, and quite frankly, it's shocking that he is being well behaved right now and reading his. I think he's looking through his SpongeBob book on his Kindle. We have not. There's thankfully. Look, as much as I hate Amazon, absolutely despise the beast of Bezos. I will say this: their kids edition Amazon Kindles have a wealth of parental programming controls available for parents who purchase the kids Kindle. We are able to put limits on the settings for how much time they can spend on games, how much time they can spend on apps, and how much time they can spend on books. On both of the boys' Kindles, we have the books set to unlimited until 7 p.m. 7 p.m., there's a hard shut off on their Kindles. They go into sleep mode until 5 a.m. the next day. They can read as much as they want. They can use the books on their Kindles as much as they want. Total free reign. But on the games, they only, we've got it set now for 3 hours total between both devices because they're lashed to the same account. So if Dennis is playing a lot of games on his Kindle, but Colin's not, Colin's going to lose out. If Colin is playing a lot of games, but Dennis is not, Dennis will lose out. This will, our hope is to teach them resource management, to say you only have so much time to use the device. And thankfully, as long as they're both home, they don't much care about the devices. They set them aside and then run off, filled with blocks, Spider-Man toys. They stage their own little fights and adventures. It's great. When they're both home, they don't care about the Kindles. It's only when Dennis is at daycare or once they're down for, once they're in their room for wind down time before bedtime, they can use their tablets for their wind down time, for their chill out time. Much as I hate Amazon, I am grateful to their programmers for figuring out a way to allow parents who purchase these products to set up hard control guidelines that the kids can't jimmy rig or work around. If I ask my kids, how much time have you been on that thing? They could very well lie to me. I would hope they wouldn't, but I can always go into the device and double check to see if they're being honest with me. And if they aren't being honest with me, okay, they're still going to get hard locked out because mommy and I set timers, set limits that they cannot break. It's called parenting. I am not the best dad in the world by any measure. I do what I can. I try to provide. I try to protect. I try to teach. I try to instruct. And where I think I might need a little bit of assistance, I look for a control setting where I can manage how much access they have. Is it manipulative? Sadly, a little bit, yes. It is manipulative. But it's there for me as a parent to utilize. It's a tool. And I make use of it. I learned about it. I read up on it. I figured out how to use the tools and the settings, and I set it up. So, anyway, that was a sidebar ramble. Sorry about that. Need the caffeine to get through these days. Anyhow, Dan, Belgian Dan, medicated, lubricated YouTuber. It's always great having you here, brother. And I know some folks are going to watch this. A handful of folks will watch this stream later on after it's made available on my YouTube channel. And I know some folks will be like, you had a lot of dead air time. Not the most entertaining guy. Why do we care about these things? I want you to consider the following. and I kind of touched upon it a little bit ago. Books and publishing, storytelling comes to us in the form of books first. Most of your television programs, most of your animation programs, most of your films, movies, they start their existence as things written down on paper or in a word processing program. Paper is more reliable these days because you don't have an algorithm checking each and every word you type and saying, this might be offensive. We think you should rephrase this. Fuck you, Google. And quite frankly, fuck you too, Microsoft. You have no business snooping around in my material as I'm creating it and giving me suggestions. If I needed suggestions from either of you, I wouldn't be telling this story. Now, would I? Fuck off. Anyway, these stories begin as creations of artistic endeavor, of imagination, of curiosity, and they are written down. If the publishing industry makes it impossible to represent all perspectives available within a populace, if the publishing industry and the library system decides to go out of its way to remove people and to remove their works from availability based on their socio political perspective, then how will we ever see the other perspective that people do genuinely hold in their hearts and in their minds? How will we ever see it, come to understand it, and be able to approach it with any degree of intellectual honesty if it's eliminated from public access? No one knows when a freakazoid is going to do something dangerous if they are removed from the conversation altogether. It goes back to the idea of don't shove them off into the darkness. Don't excise them from the community altogether. Because if and when they do come back for vengeance, they can have been screaming about what you did to them for weeks or months or years to other people who you have excised from society. And they'll be talking amongst themselves in a silo, in an echo chamber. You will literally have created the echo chamber that opposes you when you don't allow those people to have their ideas available to argue against, to critique, to point out where the logical failings are, if in fact there are any. And you also don't give yourself the opportunity to sharpen your own perspectives against an opposition. If you pretend there is no opposition, then when that opposition shows back up on your doorstep with vastly superior capability of thinking through their arguments because they spent time arguing amongst themselves, and one of them saying, well, I'll play devil's advocate and pretend to be one of the people who kicked us out of the collective community. I'll try to argue their position. They may get it wrong, but at least they're practicing the argument. The people who did the excising, they're not even bothering to practice the argument. They construct a straw man and argue against that. What happens to a sword if you beat it against bundled straw 1,000 days without ever taking a whetstone to it? When the enemy shows up, you can't even cut through cloth. Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I ask that you take care of yourselves, and as always, keep reading.